Hello and welcome to another Sustainable Packaging Summit virtual summit panel. Today we're taking a look at packaging design and sustainability. So creating a sustainable pack already starts at the design stage, and many factors have to be taken into consideration to satisfy various demands, from material choice to recyclability and functionality, and from consumer experience to shelf appeal as well. So today our speakers from across the packaging value chain will give us their take on what goes into designing a sustainable pack and discuss the challenges of balancing different requirements and also possible ways of overcoming these challenges. So with that, I'm very pleased to welcome our panelists today. So we have Amy King, who is Senior Innovation Consultant at Cambridge Design Partnership. Also, we have Elizabeth Stab, who is Rigid Packaging Sustainability Manager at H.B. Fuller. We have Mark Rademacher, who is Executive Vice President for Consumer Commercial at Constantia Flexibles. And last but definitely not least, we have Uwe Melcher, who is Vice President of the EPDA, which is the European Brand and Packaging Design Association. So yeah, welcome everybody, and thanks very much for being here today. So yeah, to get us started, I was wondering, you obviously come to the subject of packaging design from very different parts of the value chain, and I was wondering if you could briefly introduce yourselves and your companies and talk shortly about the work that you do. So yeah, let's maybe start with you, Amy.
Perfect. Hi everybody. So my name's Amy King and I work at Cambridge Design Partnership. So CDP is a end-to-end innovation partner, and we work with kind of global brands to build breakthrough products and services, and we go all the way from insights and ideas through to prototypes and production. We have on-site kind of really broad multidisciplinary teams, so we use kind of scientific rigor, design ingenuity and our engineering excellence to really help design innovative packaging solutions across kind of FMCG for kind of beverage and food products. So it's wonderful to be here today.
Thank you, Amy. And yeah, let's head to you next, Elizabeth. Would you like to tell us a bit more about yourself and H.B. Fuller?
Yes, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. So my name's Elizabeth Staub, and in our rigid packaging segment, we produce adhesives that go into case and carton closing, labeling, opening tapes, but also the production of corrugated board and with all the various adhesives that we supply into the industry, we believe that there's really a step-by-step process that makes a difference to the packaging. And when taking the adhesive into consideration from the beginning of the packaging design, that really can help determine the functionality of the overall package, but then also the recyclability of the package. So thank you very much for having me today.
Great, yeah, looking forward to hearing your insights. So yeah, Mark, would you maybe like to go next?
Of course. First of all, good morning, everybody. My pleasure to be here as well. My name is Mark Rademacher. I'm, as mentioned, Executive Vice President for Consumer Commercial at Constantia Flexibles. For the ones who don't know us, Constantia Flexibles is a leading manufacturer of flexible packaging for the consumer and pharma markets. In fact, we're number 3 globally and number 2 in Europe. We operate 37 production sites and employ 8,500 people. And all our people are basically busy with developing, distributing, and producing flexible packaging solutions. So again, my pleasure to be here. In my role, I'm in charge of our global consumer sales and product management functions. And as you can imagine, sustainability has become the #1 driver in conversations with both our customers, but also in the design of our products.
Absolutely, yes. And yeah, finally, Uwe, would you like to tell us a bit more about yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Uwe Melicher. I'm Vice President of the European Brand and Packaging Design Association. And so I represent the design community, the package design community in Europe. And our organization, well, we inspire, we inform our members who come from all across Europe. We have conferences twice a year. And we foster the dialogue with the industry. So I'm super happy to have Mark and Elizabeth and as well Amy here. And well, you are important as well, Elizabeth, and Packaging Europe is a very important source for us. And we're, well, in a partnership since quite a while. So yeah, that's I'm package designer from my background, and I'm in the business for about 27 years, and I'm running my own company aside.
Great, thank you. Yes, hopefully we'll have a really interesting discussion amongst ourselves from all the different perspectives. So yeah, to get this discussion started, I thought we'd start off at quite a high level. So I was wondering, from your different perspectives, what would you say are the most important points to bear in mind when it comes to actually designing a sustainable pack?
Well, if I may start, I would say you really have to start with the customer. What are the customer's goals? And which brand and which type of good are we trying to package? And I think there's really an appropriate packaging type and an appropriate packaging material for each type of foodstuff or beverage or other fast-moving consumer good that you are trying to package. And then once you have identified which is the most appropriate packaging material that you ought to be using for that good, then you say, how can we make that packaging the most sustainable to ensure that the recyclability is given? And then when you're looking at those options, whether you want recyclability, whether you want compostability, you ought to be looking at the geography where you are going to be putting this product and whether the infrastructure is there. I think we see oftentimes in the markets, many retailers already give rather directive guidelines in terms of what they want to see on their shelves, and not many of them have looked very closely at what is available in their respective regions in terms of the infrastructure of what actually can be collected, what can be separated, and therefore what can be recycled or otherwise treated in an appropriate way. So from a high level approach, I'd rather start sort of from the end rather than from the beginning in terms of what is the food stuff that we want to package and what does the brand want to do with that packaging. That's where I would suggest starting in this case.
And Elizabeth, I couldn't actually agree more. I think I fully am with you on that. It all starts with the customer and with the consumer ultimately, because I mean, we're all doing this in order to make life for consumers hopefully a little bit more convenient, and at the same time protect what is valuable. I mean, in our case, mostly food products basically, and prevent food waste in the chain. I mean, for us, just to add to that, our specific let's say, ingredients in the design process. I mean, they're very much shaped by our own sustainability ambition. I mean, obviously, as a group, we have certain targets and ambition of where we want to be going forward, and we're committed to a circular economy, and hence we design for recycling. Then, obviously, I mean, as you rightly said, the customers' specific requirements. I mean, in our case, also, I think the consumer and farmer customer-specific sustainability targets. I mean, take recyclability or the use of recycled and bio-based contents. And then, not to be forgotten, in that process is obviously the whole regulatory environment around us, with its specific legislation, guidelines and the like. I mean, take the Single-Use Plastics Directive, take the Packaging and Packaging Waste Directive, EPR schemes and the likes, where there are a lot of things, I think, as you all be aware, up in the air and a little bit moving. So that is all to be taken into consideration into product development and into design stage, basically.
Well, I would like to add something here. I would like to look at it from a little bit of a broader perspective. I fully agree. Looking at the customer demands and looking at the end of life of a packaging is very important. But if looking at the waste hierarchy pyramid, there are other options as well. I know that the two of you do not like to hear that, but avoid packaging if possible, or reduce it, or reuse it. These are also options which are possible, but all the rest I can't agree more what you said.
And to add to that, I think it's also interesting. I think we're all agreed there are a number of things to bear in mind when designing a sustainable pack. But really, for me, when you're at that design stage very early on, I mean, there's a well-quoted statistic that says about 80% of the sustainable impacts of a product are locked in at that design stage. And if you look at the kind of full life cycle of a product and the potential impacts that it can have, be it in manufacturing or end of life, those impacts are inadvertently decided and embedded at the design stage. That's when those decisions are made. So I think really making sure that you have in that design stage a multidisciplinary team. So you are looking at regulations, you're looking at end of life, you're talking to manufacturing, you're looking at the infrastructure that you have, and obviously bringing in the consumer element as well. I think because sustainability touched so many parts of the product development life cycle of the product process and manufacture and the customer journey, that all of those inputs need to be kind of considered at the design stage as well as the design of the pack.
Agree with that as well. And Uwe, I mean, just to get back to you on the point of waste prevention, I mean, just to be clear, there is no disagreement on that. I mean, if I look at the way that we design and actually develop our products, I mean, things like down gauging, so basically, I mean, reducing the material impact that we actually have, including our packaging, that is always a consideration. So our way of looking at waste prevention is, of course, I mean, let's prevent over packaging where it doesn't make sense. Let's still protect what's good, but with the minimum input in terms of materials being used.
Yeah, I just wanted to bother you a little bit. No, I know I'm in touch with the industry, so I know that you're doing whatever you can to also solve these issues for sure. So.
You know, funnily enough, actually, we had the case working with another partner to suggest a type of packaging that actually would significantly reduce the amount of packaging material used, but the brand felt that the change was too disruptive. And they opted for an intermediate step because they felt that going sort of all the way to reducing the amount of packaging was too drastic for the consumer. So you also really have to make sure that the consumer is willing to accept such changes on the shelf and then doesn't say, ooh, that doesn't look that great, I'm maybe not going to buy it because the product perhaps doesn't look as safe or as hygienic or as well protected or whatever else the thought process might be.
Absolutely, yeah. There's so much to bear in mind in the whole process, and it's great to have this discussion and kind of sort of shine a light at it from different angles. And that brings me to my next question. I was wondering how, sort of from your individual perspectives, digging a bit deeper there, how do you approach and organize the process of designing a sustainable product packaging from your sort of point of view?
I think it's a question for the designers. So first of all, let me start. I mean, it's first of all, you need to analyze what's necessary, talk to the client, also, well, check what the consumer demands are, and then, well, there's no universal answer. You need to really look into the key criteria. So checking the use case, the scenarios, the construction characterization of material, material health is an issue. So really, well, work on all these points to find, well, a scope first, and then start to look for good solutions.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there is no universal answer to that process. I mean, maybe just a bit of context here. I mean, at our company, we actually, what can I say? I think we put quite some resource on that topic, actually, so on the process. I mean, globally, we operate 5 R&D centers, and we have 100 people working in R&D and 100 people working in product management, whose sole focus is actually doing that. And we do that, I mean, getting back to Elizabeth's comments earlier, we do that customer-centric first. Yeah, I mean, we develop basically together with our customers based on specific market requirements. And then beyond that, I mean, obviously, we try to stay on top of any development in that yet quite volatile regulatory landscape. So, I mean, just to give you an example, which is live, just vivid in my memory, just yesterday, the team and we actually met with a leading European recycling company in order to further align our understanding on their specific requirements. So how can we work together to ensure that our products actually work very well with the existing and future recycling infrastructure? So these are all, I think, inputs into a fairly complex, sustainable product design process, which, I mean, again, which will vary from case to case.
And I'd really...
And I would, oh, sorry, go ahead, Amy.
No problem. I was just going to say, I'd really echo that point. I think often when we work for clients, they want a more sustainable pack. And it's not a simple one-step solution. There are so many inputs, as we've heard before, into what sustainability means from a consumer point of view, what gives them value, what sustainability means to our clients and the companies, but also what's technically feasible. There are a lot of things that can be recycled, but aren't in practice because the infrastructure is not there. And I think it's really important to see sustainable design as a long-term process. And there are going to be short-term options you can do to make your packaging more sustainable, but they might change in the long run. And I think being able to show different ways to approach sustainable design, different materials that kind of adapt and develop as technology increases, but also as infrastructure and recycling changes and consumer behavior changes as well. So I think it's really important to know that the design process isn't static and is quite kind of changeable in short to long term.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add from an adhesive point of view, adhesives being a very small part of the overall packaging, oftentimes, unfortunately, enter the discussion fairly late in the design stage. And our customers say, well, we just need an adhesive that keeps the package together. Thank you very much. But there are various aspects to be taken into consideration with regards to the recyclability of the primary packaging material, and adhesives are very well equipped in order to enable the recyclability of the primary material, whether that is for flexible packaging, for carton, for the wash off of labels, etc. And as Amy was saying, the sustainable packaging is still very much an evolving concept. As others have also already mentioned, there are various pieces of legislation in the European Union that are still being adapted. There are more amendments that are being drafted as we speak and being worked on in order to basically increase the teeth on some of those pieces of legislation or directives. Also the discussion of moving some directives actually to regulation. So that space is really one that we all in the packaging industry and food and beverage industry need to keep watching. And at the same time, there's also legislation in terms of the materials and the ingredients that we can use for our products that also are becoming more restricted in essence. So it very much is an evolving space and very much a step-by-step process. You're going to design a packaging that you're going to have on the shelf for a period of time, but in 3-4 years that may well look completely different. So it's really an iterative process that for all of us, thankfully, never finishes.
Absolutely, yes. And that kind of brings me to my next question. Some of you have alluded to it a little bit already, but what would you say are the biggest challenges in this area that you've come across from your perspective?
I mean, I can happily start with that. I mean, I would see at least three, which would be, I mean, first of all, technical challenges. Secondly, regulatory uncertainty, and thirdly, the VUCA world around us. To be a bit more precise on those three, I mean, in terms of technical challenges, I mean, obviously there is a need also for the flexibles packaging industry to transform its product portfolio to really sustainable solutions beyond just greenwash claims, which we have seen emerging as well. So I think our industry's products, they have always been designed on very specific filling good requirements. And transforming these specific material structures into sustainable alternatives with the same or at least similar performance features, that already is quite a, what can I say, technical or even scientific challenge in itself. Yeah, so I think that clearly is one challenge. Luckily, we have the right team to actually take care of that. Secondly, I mean, the regulatory uncertainty, this was, I mean, mentioned a few times already. There is, I mean, with all our packaging development, there is a parallel evolution ongoing of that regulatory landscape around us. And that has induced quite some uncertainty into, I think, the whole industry. And in this context, I think the regulatory frameworks, they're yet far from being complete or far from being harmonized and, I mean, quite complex to work with. I mean, to give you a concrete example, the definition of the recyclability in the revised Packaging and Packaging Waste Directive basically says at least 95% of the unit of packaging shall be recyclable, according to this definition, which I think we have to be honest about. That is unrealistic. There should be no percentage threshold in such kind of a definition, but there should basically be specific criteria, specific design for recycling guidelines for specific substrates, materials, and format specific. So that is, I mean, that is a challenge in itself, as you can imagine. And the last bit, as I was mentioning, is this VUCA world around us. I think the recent global events, they have shifted actually priorities in the markets a little bit away from this key topic of sustainability. I mean, take the COVID pandemic, the impact on trials and validations on our side with customers. I mean, people couldn't actually go see filling lines and the likes. And now we have the global inflation, and I mean, overall security of supply concerns, disrupted supply chains around the world. So that is, I think, that is a bit of a distraction. And I think we as an industry, we need to ensure we continue to have the right focus on this super important sustainability topic. So these are three challenges that I would see.
I absolutely agree with you, Mark. I really see that that regulatory uncertainty and the economic uncertainty are really very important topics. And I have to say, we are all happy when we can serve our customers and deliver what we have promised. With regards to the development of further sustainable packaging, one of the I'd say key issues I see there is that not all brand owners have a very good understanding of the sustainable packaging they are trying to attain. And I would argue that many companies over the past few years have signed up to various global promises without necessarily doing all their homework. And many have set very ambitious goals for 2025 without fully understanding what all that would require. And now they are scrambling to find those solutions. We oftentimes find customers that say, well, but I want to have that compostable. And you ask them, well, why does that need to be compostable? And can it actually be composted in that context? Will it actually be composted where you are putting that package? And then you often get a bit of a blank face because they haven't necessarily thought through the entire process. So I oftentimes really see, I want to say a lack of education or further education, and I'm sure most brand owners have teams in their companies that are very well on top of the topic, but it's not necessarily across the entire organization. And we oftentimes find that different departments have different objectives that don't necessarily all go in the same direction to achieve sustainable packaging.
Absolutely. I think education is a very important point. It's really a very important point, not only for the brand owners and the designers, but also for the consumers at the end of the day. But talking for the design community, well, we're sometimes, I would say, a little bit lost. We are over flooded by new innovation, communication from the industry, and so on. But the orientation is missing. So I wonder, and that's a question back. So what you as an industry are doing well to help us find our way through all these different products and sustainable options. Just as an example, I'm also busy with or also in touch very much with the fiber industry, and they just issued a circular guideline. I was part of this evergreen initiative. Is there something similar, or do you believe that this is helpful? And also, Amy, would you agree on that, or do you see things different here?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I was sitting listening to kind of what everyone was saying. And I mean, this question was about what are the biggest challenges? And we've highlighted a huge number of challenges really across a lot of different kind of parts. We've got regulatory challenges, we've got end of life sustainability challenges, we've got technical challenges, we've got making sure we meet consumer value, we've got obviously challenges of building or designing and manufacturing sustainable packs in-house. And I think for me, what really echoes hearing all of that, and it's something we see when our clients come to us, is there's a lot of information here, and a lot of our clients are just really unsure how to proceed. Sustainable pack, sustainable design is obviously really interesting and really kind of popular right now. There's regulations coming through about sustainability. There's a huge push from consumers. But as Elizabeth said, sometimes consumers kind of say they want things but don't really understand kind of why they want it, or actually they kind of need something else. And I think that's very tricky for a lot of brand owners and a lot of companies to navigate. I know that at CDP, we kind of have a sustainability team that works closely with our design team to make sure that when we're designing packaging, that we understand the full LCA and life cycle. We can also bring in scientists to understand the kind of technical challenges. But I think broadly, this area is complex. Which could sound a little bit disheartening, but there's definitely ways through the kind of challenges. And I think it's really kind of, for me, it's about keeping the end sustainability goal in mind, understanding what that means for the consumer, and then finding a technology that will meet that.
I agree with that. And I mean, Uwe, to get back to your question, I mean, what can we do as an industry here? I think we can contribute to that educational process for sure. I mean, especially on the side of our customers where that is required. I mean, I think you have a bit of a disbalanced information basis still in the market. I mean, some customers are very well informed. I mean, if you take the major FMCG players, some of them actually, I think, on top of the game. They are very well informed. Whereas others may struggle with that uncertainty that is still around, especially from a regulatory perspective. So we can help to sort of like disentangle that and educate. And secondly, I mean, when it comes to creating, what can I say, more harmonized rules, and help, I mean, shape that regulatory environment in a way that it actually suits the purpose, which is intended, which is very good. I mean, we also see it a little bit as our responsibility to contribute to that. I mean, to give you an example, we are a member of the EU Product Environmental Footprint Category Rules, complicated name. So this is a project that is actually looking on environmental footprints of products, aiming to harmonize the rules around that, which again, I mean, anything that helps to clarify the situation will make it easier for everybody in the whole value chain.
Good.
Yeah, thanks, Mark, and everybody. I was wondering, leading on from that, and talking about all the challenges. Do you have any examples of any recent work you've done or you were involved with that maybe addressed some of these challenges that you'd like to talk about?
Okay, before nobody starts with that, I mean, I was just trying to be polite because I've just finished, but I mean, I'm happily going to talk about something I think that we at Constantia are actually quite proud of. So I'm not going to hold back. I need to apologize if I come across as being a little bit over proud of it. But we have this product range which is called Ecolam, which actually sits under the umbrella of our Ecolutions product, which is this logo that you see here, which is basically our product range of more sustainable products. And Ecolam is actually, this is a range of mono-PE laminates. And we have launched these mono-PE laminates with one objective, to basically replace conventional non-recyclable flexible structures, including non-recyclable flexible barrier structures. And this is something, I mean, that, as you can imagine, has been quite a technical/scientific challenge to actually get there. We meanwhile have this material ready. It has been certified with according letters of compatibility by all of the leading recycling associations and institutes. I mean, take Recyclass Institute, Cyclos, CPAT, and the likes. And it's actually gaining commercial traction as well. Yeah, so we have a number of customers meanwhile who are in the process of converting from non-recyclable structures to our fully recyclable Ecolam structure, which, I mean, one of the reasons I'm so proud of it is a story that actually started a couple of years ago. I mean, in 2019, we actually built the first production plant, because of proudness, the first production plant on the planet that was focused on producing only recyclable flexible packaging. So 3 years ago, we opened that plant in India, producing blown film as an input into our Ecolam product range. And I believe that at the time, it was actually quite a bold move to take. Yeah, because I mean, recyclability demands for the flexibles industry, they were just emerging. And I think that is already at that time, that was a very clear signal of our commitment to actually make things work for the better here. So that is one example. I am actually quite proud that we managed to overcome some of the challenges just mentioned.
Well, and I can add, I'm at the moment with my company, I'm busy with a project where it's about finding a sustainable solution for flexible packaging, and I'm in the orientation phase. And it is interesting. Well, it's exactly what we had earlier in the discussion, that the client, first of all, wants something biodegradable, does not know the unterschied about the difference between the compost and the industrial biodegradation and so on, does not know what bioplastics mean, what the differences are, and does not even take in consideration that a recyclable solution may be the best, what I'm in this respect are convinced of. So this is something from, just to give you a perspective what happens at the design side, that yeah, and it ties in with what you've said before.
So from an adhesive perspective, we of course have adhesives that go into a multitude of different packaging types. And of course, every day it's our goal to reduce our customers' consumption, whether that's the actual adhesive or energy consumption, as best as possible, and really have the adhesives that are as efficient as possible. But for me personally, the projects that are really exciting is when we're looking at a different design, and when we are able to really change things and have a different look of the pack on the shelf. So the one or two examples I'd really like to mention here are that of the multi-pack. We've been working with various industry partners on developing multi-packs, whether that's the Nature multi-pack or the Keel Clip, or also for aseptic packaging. With Blue Box partners, we've come up with various solutions for customers that will be entering the shelf soon. So that's really areas where we can then change the entire package to make it more sustainable and really augment the functionality of the adhesive. And then in e-commerce, which we haven't talked about today, but really is a growing sector, every time we open a package, with the unboxing experience really being such an important part of the e-commerce experience, every time you open that, sometimes there's a simple perforation, which doesn't always work that well, and then you have a plastic tape that is embedded in the pack. And last year, H.B. Fuller launched a fiber-based opening tear tape that can also be used as a reinforcement tape in other packages, and we have been able to really commercialize that now here in Europe, but also in the United States for e-commerce packaging, both for fulfillment centers, but also in ship and own container packages. So that's really a great step to take plastic out of the packaging and increase the overall high quality fiber in the recycling material. And again, adhesives really enable that recycling of the final product and of the primary packaging that we see on the shelf every day.
So a couple of examples from CDP. So as I said, we're an end-to-end innovation partner. So I guess something recent that we're most proud of is our work as the R&D partner for Pulpex. So some of you might be aware of Pulpex as a paper-based beverage bottle. And it's a really kind of groundbreaking sustainability project with the aim to address kind of plastic waste. And Pulpex itself is a patented, first of its kind pulp packaging innovation. It's renewable and recyclable, and it kind of really helps brands to kind of rethink packaging propositions. So as I mentioned, we were the R&D partner, which was an honor. It was a very technically challenging project, which we took from prototyping through to manufacture. And it involved kind of our technical teams, so our engineering team, as well as our sustainability, to look at the life cycle of the Pulpex product, as well as our design team, because obviously we wanted to make sure that a paper-based bottle still met those consumer needs and consumer wants. In addition, we've got another kind of a tool that we use with clients called Dialogue, which is a consumer research tool. So often it's really difficult to know what consumers will do with a pack at the end of its life. You know, you can ask them what they'll do, but in practice, often they do something different. Dialogue allows our clients to, or we for our clients will embed sensors in a packaging prototype and then conduct trials in real life with consumers. And we can actually monitor through sensors how a consumer will dispose of a pack at end of life, and kind of how it gets thrown away effectively, to help we take that information to help inform the design process to kind of improve sustainability of the pack from a consumer point of view. So they're just two examples that we're quite proud of at the moment.
Great, thank you, Amy. And I wanted to zoom in a little bit on the materials side, and a question for you, Mark. Obviously at Constantia Flexibles, you offer different substrates, and I was wondering, why is that, and how do you decide which one is best for a particular application?
Yeah, well, indeed. I mean, we basically follow an approach that we call a 360-degree approach across substrates, and I mean, included materials in our Ecolutions product range. We basically do this in order to meet the challenge of the circular economy without compromising on the functionality of our products. As mentioned, I think there is still some uncertainty around which direction of travel from a regulatory perspective. And I think we need to bear in mind that each base material actually has its very own set of technical features, which can be ideal for a specific product to be packed. I mean, if I'm just going through them briefly, we are a major supplier of aluminum-based packaging solution. So aluminum obviously is a substrate that provides high barrier for product protection, can be recycled indefinitely without losing technical properties. There is widespread recycling infrastructure in place and the likes. So we have this Eco Alu, which is basically part of the Ecolutions product range, which we can offer with recycled content options, ASI certified materials, BPA-free, chrome-free, down-gauged, you name it. So that's one route of travel, aluminum. Second route is on the film side, where, we provide we'll focus on two base materials. One is polyethylene, so PE, which is the Ecolam solution that I've just mentioned too. This is, from our perspective, best suited for flexible film-based packaging for a circular economy, because PE can actually be recycled in a closed film-to-film recycling loop without downgrading of material. Second option is polypropylene, so PP. So here we can offer products, solutions for filling goods that require either higher stiffness or that require higher chemical and temperature resistance. Take retorting as an example. So this is our EcoVer product range. And the last one, mirroring, I think a little bit what Elizabeth was alluding to. We obviously also have a paper-based product range where we offer tailor-made paper-based packaging solutions to our customers, which we call, as part of the Ecolutions product range, Eco Paper, or we also have bio-based materials like EcoBio. These are very much, as I said, tailor-made solutions for very specific applications. And I think you, obviously, on the paper side, you have a strong renewable, image and focus behind those materials. So our recommendation of materials to customers will very much depend on those technical features, as I was explaining, and then the sustainability specific aspects in terms of recyclability, where we basically provide our customers with an assessment of recyclability for every new product that we develop, in alignment with the major recycling associations. And also we offer actually in-house LCA services so that our customers actually understand what kind of carbon footprint is related to what kind of specific packaging solution before they take a decision. Because getting back to Amy's comment earlier, there is certainly, the majority of the sustainability aspects is locked in at the design stage. And that's our way how to tackle that.
Thank you, Mark. And I was wondering, Elizabeth, you alluded to it before already, but I wanted to sort of hear a bit more about that. What role can adhesives play when it comes to creating a sustainable pack?
I'd say it really makes a difference if you have an adhesive involved or an adhesive producer, the technicians and those looking at adhesives every day in terms of what the adhesive can do and what the adhesive cannot do, or what can also be developed. I think we've seen that with the technology where cans and PET bottles are glued to one another. Adhesives can be developed to achieve those new challenges. And there are other applications. One that we haven't really touched on today, but the area that I call the invisible packaging, the packaging, all the pallet packaging that we do not see in the supermarket because it has been removed before the shelf-ready packaging is actually put on the shelf. But all the packaging that is used during the supply chain to keep the pallet stable, to keep the products dust-free, moisture-free, etc. There are various opportunities where adhesives and other solutions can be used to significantly reduce the amount of material that is used. And I'd say overall, the aspect of recyclability, again, just to say it again, the choice of adhesive really can influence the recyclability of the primary packaging material. I've seen it in various discussions where somebody would say, well, I just assumed that the label would wash off. Well, yes, but you do have to choose the appropriate adhesive. In particular, when you are talking about a plastic label, you do have to make sure that you have the appropriate adhesive to wash off. The technology is there, but you do have to ask for it. So it's those types of considerations where, again, as Amy was saying and others as well, you have to think through the entire process. What is going to happen with my packaging? How is it going to be collected, sorted, treated, and then recycled? And really what the capabilities of the infrastructure in your region are to be able to fulfill those needs. And for most things, adhesives do have solutions. There are various solutions without adhesives as well, but you need to think through that, how you're going to have your packaging functionality, because while consumers definitely want to have sustainable packaging as of yet, They're not willing to compromise on functionality, and we definitely don't want to be compromising on food safety and increasing food waste by not having appropriate packaging.
Absolutely, yeah, those are really key issues to bear in mind. I wanted to move on a bit to the role of packaging on the shelf as well as a kind of silent salesman, and look at that in the context of sustainability. So when you have a more sustainable pack, that would kind of be a selling point. But how would you say can this sustainability on the pack be communicated to the consumer?
Well, some of the solutions which make the package more sustainable are invisible, so there needs to be a communication. And well, we're facing the problem that well, we're over flooded by sustainability communication, and I think the consumer is totally confused with all the different icons, pictograms around. I wrote an article in Packaging Europe some time ago about the friends of the tidy man and the tree man and the green dot and all this, and I think we have to have a system that indicates well, the sustainability in a different way, and that again needs to well, to collaborate all along the supply and value chain. I don't know how the others see that issues, but I think we need some kind of standards here.
I would fully agree with that. I mean, there is, I mean, what comes to mind here is what is required is a clear demarcation, what actually needs to be done with a certain packaging towards end of life. We mustn't confuse the end consumer, because Uwe, I agree, that's very easy to get confused with all of those things around. And I mean, I guess not every grocery shopper intends to become an expert in packaging or in packaging recycling. So as an industry, we would need to have those products easily marked, or even better. I mean, an example would also be, which goes into the same direction of simplicity. I mean, if we were able to just basically ensure that automatically the packs would end up in the right recycling stream, that would obviously be ideal as well. So at Constantia, we are a member of this Holy Grail 2.0 project, which I'm sure you are aware, which is basically a digital watermark aiming to integrate recycling coding into the print design of products without even being visible to the consumer. And hence, that can also help to enable better sorting and therefore better quality of the recycled substrate. So to me, it's very much about simplicity and actually being clear about what is required.
Absolutely. The consumers want convenience. And I mean, there are various packaging types where you actually have to separate something. I see that at home. You have to actually separate the cardboard sleeve from the plastic container. And I do that because, you know, this is a topic very close to my heart, but I would suggest that many consumers don't. So as Mark was saying, if it happens automatically, that of course is ever so much more convenient. And I'd say overall, the complexity for the consumer is just absolutely overwhelming. Even when the consumer does want to do the right thing, it is just so complicated. And with lives being so busy, you just want to have it as easy as possible. So if that can, to a certain degree, be taken away from the consumer and happen automatically in the infrastructure once the recycling materials have been collected from the homes of the consumers, whether that's the homes or other areas where garbage is being collected, restaurants, etc., then the sorting happens at a later stage. And the better we can get the sorting, the more recycled materials we have available, because that's then the next issue, is that many companies have committed to using a certain percentage of recycled material, but if you do the math, it doesn't quite add up. The recycled material is not available to such a degree as is required today. Or rather in the future, it won't necessarily be there if we cannot increase the overall collection and recycling rates.
I agree that kind of communicating to the consumer the sustainability of a pack, whether a pack is sustainable and then how to dispose of it at end of life is really complex. And I think that there are a number of use steps to obviously dispose of sustainable packs at the moment. But I think there's something you can do before then, playing on the design, the aesthetics, the visuals, the color, the texture and feel of packs, just to make consumers aware, oh, this isn't a regular plastic or traditional material, this is a sustainable material. And then those consumers that are more invested and interested in sustainability are then more likely to maybe look at regulations or certification symbols or try and read the end of use. And yes, there's still more steps there, but I think you can leverage design to help just imply that this is a sustainable pack, and then the consumer can look for more information if they want. Still, that is a lot of extra steps, and I do think kind of long-term education is key, to educate the consumer on how and when is appropriate to dispose of packaging. And I do think that this is something we were talking about earlier, where the industry could come together as a whole and kind of educate the whole consumer base in the same kind of understanding and way.
I think especially I agree, Amy, that the haptics and the aesthetics and the codes are very important to identify this, or can help to identify this. But I also absolutely agree on what Mark says, that digital tools will help us here. Be it Holy Grail with GSM, also GS1 behind. They just issued a very interesting guideline to help to differentiate the different materials, but also there are apps helping to identify the right bin for whatever you have in your hands, matching the information, the packaging material information with the recycling requirements. So there's an app called Scrap on its way. So there are many things on a digital base that will help us for the future.
Thank you, Uwe. And I was wondering, in the context of all this, there is obviously a sort of danger of some greenwashing, and sort of with this communicating sustainability and just sort of, making the packaging color green or make it look like it's made out of cardboard, even though it's plastic and things like that. How do you think that sort of thing can be avoided?
Well, I'd say there are various initiatives already underway in the European Union to be able to combat greenwashing. And in terms of the requirements, Mark mentioned it earlier, for the recycling of the 95%, the companies are also being obliged to prove that and to show that those 95% can be achieved. Now, there's discussion around the 25%, as Mark said, but in terms of the recycling, the companies are being asked to prove that. So making unfounded claims, greenwashing essentially is becoming more and more difficult. And the European Union, with the various amendments that they're looking at for pieces of legislation, are definitely doing their best to try and cut that down. That's, of course, not going to be foolproof, and people who really want to make false claims are probably going to be able to do that, unfortunately, but I'd say by and large it will become more and more difficult. And I'd also say that nowadays, with social media and consumers being very much more aware of what is going on, it's also going to be very much more difficult for companies to get away with that. So don't want to say that the danger isn't there, but I do think that there are various measures that are going to keep the industry honest.
I fully agree with Elizabeth. I mean, both on the regulatory clarity being required here, as well as on the fact that that's actually good to have to ensure that there's basically no free riding on that topic. Yeah, because I think the whole industry that's taking this very seriously is actually investing significantly into that transformation, because, I mean, we do want to make it happen. And I think we should make it happen in a way that actually really works, without any, let's say, unintended consequences behind it. So as you mentioned, regulatory clarity is key. I mean, for us, obviously, the effective implementation of EPR schemes. So, I mean, extended producer responsibility schemes, like you have in Germany, for example, with the Green Dot, that can help to incentivize more sustainable solutions also via lower EPR fees. And in that context, again, I mean, the brand owners as well as retailers actually have to prove that this has the right for a certain EPR fee. So that is one further instrument. And then the third one, from my perspective, would be to have credible third-party certifications and being very transparent about that actually in the process. Because in the end, I mean, it's vital that the brands and the brand owners also educate consumers about what are the true environmental attributes of their product portfolio, which can be credibly done with third-party certifications.
I think that there's also things that companies can do internally. I agree with everything kind of externally at an industry level, the regulations coming in, standards, governing bodies, educating consumers. But I think everything we've spoken about before about that sustainable design process, having that in-house, is what can help avoid unintentional kind of consequences like greenwashing for brands. So designing sustainability in from the beginning, understanding exactly what that sustainability means for this pack and also how it will develop. So looking at as well the current limitations of recycling on a regional infrastructure basis. But also I agree about being transparent with consumers. Like we've heard, they're very savvy about sustainability. So being upfront and honest about the sustainable metrics of those packs. And also going back to what I mentioned earlier, I think it's having a short and long-term plan for sustainability. Regulations are changing so quickly, technology is changing so quickly that, like Elizabeth said earlier, the pack you put on the shelf tomorrow is not going to be the same as the pack in 5 years' time. So I think knowing that sustainability is a long-term goal and it's not a quick fix, and having that in the back of your mind will help try and avoid things like greenwashing.
Absolutely, yes, that's very, very true. So yeah, to wrap up this discussion and maybe also leave a little bit of time for audience questions, I was wondering, since we're all together here as players from different parts of the value chain, I was wondering, do you think there's anything you could sort of learn from each other, and are there any questions or suggestions you might have for each other within the framework of this panel?
I mean, in terms of learning from each other, I think, and this goes, I mean, obviously for the participants of this panel, but I think also far beyond that, I mean, throughout the whole value chain, I think some of the challenges that we face as a packaging industry, these are actually challenges that we can only overcome by, what can I say, a new openness to cooperation and collaboration within the whole value chain. I mean, to me, this actually starts from the side of the raw material manufacturers, via the brand owners, to the packaging designers, the packaging converters like us, all the way to the recyclers, including the policymakers. So I think this massive transformational change that we have in front of us, which we all do agree is actually the right thing to do, it will require significant efforts and collaboration of everybody in that whole chain to make things work. So I'd say that openness to a cooperation, that would be vital. That's something that we actually all need to embrace.
And I can just add, you're very much welcome to talk to us, to the design community. Our brains are different, and Amy, I think you agree on that. So we can think about connections, maybe other people who have other things won't find. And so welcome, talk to us, connect with us. So I think we can learn a lot from each other, and I appreciate this dialogue today and beyond a lot.
Yeah, I'd say overall the collaboration is absolutely key. And it was just last week that our podcast was published, Elizabeth, when we were speaking with Daphne. And I think that open collaboration and really working together and bringing those different perspectives together. I mean, we saw it with Blue Box Partner and HB Fuller, bringing those two perspectives together, just really had those aha moments of, oh, that's how it works. Oh, I cannot spray the adhesive horizontal, vertically upwards. It's not going to work. It's going to make a mess. So it's those types of things that people don't necessarily see if they don't work with that every day. And really getting as many partners of the supply chain around one table to solve a problem is really extremely valuable. It's of course a very challenging thing to do in our industry. But as Mark said, absolutely necessary for the challenges that need to be overcome and the new solutions that we really need to have in our supermarkets in order to have a sustainable circular economy going forward.
And I think I'd just add to that, obviously we've heard collaboration is key, it's difficult. I think one of the best things about coming together is getting sustainability infrastructure changes, regulation changes is going to take time. You're kind of in it for the long haul. But if we can come together as a community and kind of come together on specific points and actions, infrastructure, get things like Elizabeth said we need in supermarkets or in recycling infrastructure, then I think we stand a chance of increasing sustainability for the better of everybody.
Absolutely, yes. And here at Packaging Europe, we obviously very happy to provide a platform to sort of promote this dialogue, to make sure everybody kind of talks to each other and can find the best solution together. So yeah, we've just got time for a couple of quick audience questions. Obviously, any question we haven't had time for, feel free to connect with our speakers on LinkedIn and yeah, sort of take the discussion sort of off this platform as well. So one person's asking, can a design team work in a way that searches for the best possible solution without a customer asking and restricting it? This would allow for the discovery of new solutions that may work for many customers that you already supply. Does anybody have any thoughts on this question?
Well, I'd say overall it very much depends on what the ask of the customer is. We found in our open innovation sessions for our customers that the more clearly that they have defined their problem, the easier it is to come up with a workable solution. If they're very vague about what their problem is and what they want to achieve, going back again to, do they want to reduce the overall packaging? Are they looking to reuse the packaging? Are they focused on recycling, or do they want compostability? It's that end goal that is really important to understand, and then for them to define very clearly this is their biggest pain point that they want to get rid of. Then, of course, once you have developed that new design, I would expect that it would be appropriate for many other customers to use. So if you sort of start with a blank sheet and then say, do whatever you want, I think everybody on the panel has really said it depends on the food stuff that you are packaging or the beverage that you are packaging, and the overall goals that you are trying to achieve, the infrastructure that you have in that region. So there are many parameters that you are working around. So I'd say that's a tricky one. No direct answer for that one.
Are you inviting designers to your open innovation sessions?
Absolutely. Well, we have packaging designers that participate, yes.
Okay, good.
And yeah, one other question we've probably got time for, even though we're running slightly over, but that should be fine. Talking about on shelf, what role do you think retailers should play? For example, by indicating which products have above 70% recycled content, as was discussed by the retailer DM here in Germany?
I would say, I mean, if I may just give a quick answer on that one, I think retailer, in fact, have a role to play in this as well. I mean, in that value chain that we're just discussing of collaboration, because ultimately, I mean, they are the closest ones to the end consumers. And I mean, we see a number of very good efforts actually from the retailers in terms of coming up with design guidelines, packaging guidelines, which, I mean, obviously are then based on the latest regulatory aspects, latest understanding of actual recyclability and the likes. So, but I would say for sure, retailers have a role to play in this. Absolutely.
Great. So, yeah, that brings us to the end of today's session. And yeah, I'd like to thank everybody who joined us today. And just a reminder that this panel discussion is part of a regular series of virtual panels as in the framework of a Sustainable Packaging Summit. If you'd like to find out more details or get access to them, sign up on the Packaging Europe website. Another reminder that we have our face-to-face Sustainable Packaging Summit in Lisbon on the 13th and 14th of September. And what's important about that one, it's a summit, not a conference. And it aims to bring together leaders to discuss sustainability challenges and sort of work on how we can align around better strategies. And again, for that, you can find more details on the Packaging Europe website. So for now, yes, thank you very much again for joining us. And yeah, once again, I'd like to thank our speakers, Amy King, Elisabeth Staab, Mark Rademacher, and Uwe Mellicher. So yeah, thank you very much, everybody. And yeah, looking forward to speaking again soon. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.